Hello, my name is Frederick Salmon Mwijage from Edukea Tanzania. I'm a History 2 teacher of advanced level. I welcome you to proceed with our topic, which is new colonialism and the question of underdevelopment in the third world countries or third world. On the last session, we ended on the recommendations of Brandt report. So now let us go to the outcomes of the Brandt report. What were the effects or impacts of Brandt report? The first outcome was it has led to the increase of influence on the South by the North. As I have told you that the Brandt report was reformed or was formed by the Northerners on how to see the solutions to assist the Southerners. So the outcome of Brandt report among them was the increase of influence on the South by the North. It means the influence of the Northerners to the Southerners was increased. For example, the Northerners were interfered or intervened the social, political, and economic matters or affairs of the Southerners. For example, in political matters, the introduction of multi-party system and the constitutional system in various southern countries. For example, in Tanzania, the introduction of multi-party system or multi-party government, which was introduced in 1992 and was implemented in 1995. So you can see that the Northerners influenced much or were influential much in southern countries or in the South. This was the first outcome. The second one, it has led to the increase of flow of aids on the South. It means that the Brandt report has increased the flowing of aids to the South. It means that the Northerners are giving the aids, for example, financial aids, medical aids, economic aids, and other aids, technological aids. So you can see those aids are flowing to the Southern for ensuring that the economies are revamped in one way or another to ensure the economic progress and they escape from on poverty and other underdevelopment problems. Another, it has extended the market of goods from the North. It means the Brandt report extended the market from the North, extended the market of goods from the North. It means that's why we see on the southern countries we experience the importation of goods or manufactured goods from the northern countries. For example, in Europe and in America and the Asian countries which are developed. So the Brandt report on one way or another extended the market of goods from the North. That's why in the southern there is dependence of Northerners goods or Northerners manufactured goods in order to fulfill their needs and their consuming needs. Another, it has led to influx of expatriates in the South. It means that the Brandt report led to the influence of expatriates in the South. In which sense? In the sense that the Northerners decided to give the experts to South in order to help the Southerners in improving various economic projects, like the experts who came or who are migrated to the South in order to assist in different activities like in mining sectors, construction activities, agricultural projects, and the tourism activities. So you can see that, for example, in mining, there is for example, in Tanzania, the extraction of gas in Mtwara and Lindi, it just it just led to the influx of expertise from the north in order to assist the Africans who don't have the knowledge and the skills on how they will extract that gas. So the expertise come in those south countries in order to help them. Even in agricultural activities, there are officers who came or who are coming from the north in order to assist the southerners who don't have enough skills and knowledge about how to implement the agricultural modern methods. And other economic activities, we see that the expertise are flowing from their nations to southern countries. This was another outcome of Brandt report. But another, it has led to the provision of relief in the south. For example, medical and foods. It means that due to the southern countries to be suffering from various problems like diseases and hunger, the northerners have decided to provide reliefs like medical. For example, the US aids or US relief on the provision of medicine which are called the ARV for lengthening the lifespan of the affected by the AIDS or by HIV/AIDS. But the provision of various strategies on combating malaria, those nets are being provided by the USA, by the US government, on ensuring that the southerners are escaping from the dangerous or deadly diseases. And foods, we see that the various international organizations like the organizations which are under UN are providing various reliefs, especially food. For example, where in southern countries where the wars are going on, like in Congo, in Somalia, in Rwanda, and the other nations which are present in a southern zone or southern hemisphere. So this was the result of Brandt report. And the last one, it has strengthened the dependence syndrome. It means that the Brandt report has brought or increased the dependence syndrome among the southerners. It means that no any country in southern, or there are almost a few countries which can budget or which can prepare their annual budget without depending on the abroad or on the northerners. You can see that various nations in the southern hemisphere are depending financial assistance to countercheck their problems depending on the northerners. So the northerners are providing the financial, economic, political and social assistance to the southern hemisphere countries. So this was another outcome of Brandt report. After looking at the outcomes, let us see another conference or another solution which was come up to tackle the question of underdevelopment and the new colonialism in developing nations, which was called the Havana Non-Alignment Conference. And the question of solving underdevelopment problems in developing nations. It means that the Havana Non-Alignment Conference, this was another conference that was held in Havana in Cuba, for aiming to come up with solutions on how they will countercheck the problem of underdevelopment in the less developed countries. The Havana Non-Alignment Conference, this was the 6th summit conference which was held in Havana in Cuba from 3rd to 9th September 1979 to discuss and find explicit solutions towards the problem of underdevelopment of the third world countries. It means that the Havana Non-Alignment Conference was the 6th summit conference which took place or which was held in Havana in Cuba from 3rd to 9th September 1979 to discuss and to find the best solutions on how they will curb the problem of underdevelopment in many third world countries. The conference was chaired by the then president of Yugoslavia called Tito. It means that the Havana Non-Alignment Conference was chaired or was under the leadership of then president of the then president of Yugoslavia, so-called Tito. The conference was attended by 92 non-aligned nations. It means that the Havana Non-Alignment Conference was attended by 92 non-aligned nations. So let us see the influence of the conference towards the efforts to solve the problem or problems of underdevelopment. What was the influence of the conference towards the efforts to solve the problem of underdevelopment in third world countries? The first one was the conference stressed the urgent need to improve transport and communication on the developing nations. It means that the conference was aimed at to improve the transport and the communication in developing nations. As we know that the third world countries has poor transport and communication networks. So those countries or non-allied nations were intended to create the best or good transport and the communications in third world countries that will facilitate the transportation of trading goods and other activities which are taking place in third world countries, and the result will push up the growth of the economies. So that was the first influence of the conference towards the efforts of solving the problem of underdevelopment in the third world countries. Another influence to the efforts, it stressed the role of women in economic development. It means that Havana Non-Aligned Movement or conference was stressed on the role of women in economic development, so that they can push up the economic development of the nation. On the previous time, the women were not given the chance to participate in various aspects of life or in various economic activities. For example, in participation of production, for example, in being employed in the companies or in governmental positions, the women were not given the priority to do so. So the Havana Conference or the Havana Non-Aligned Conference was aimed at giving the chance for women to participate in economic build-up, so that they can assist or they can increase the economic or the national income, whereby when the women are participating, the growth of the economy will increase because the labor will be increased. So this was another influence of the conference toward the efforts to solve the problem of underdevelopment. Another, it emphasized the non-allied movement governments to undergo agricultural reforms and integrate rural developments. It means that Havana Non-Allied Conference was emphasized the non-allied movements or nations or governments to to undergo agricultural reforms. It means that they emphasized the non-allied movement nations to undergo the agricultural reforms, which will increase the agricultural production. It means that in many third world countries, agricultural activities are local, and there is no scientific and technological methods of production. So that's why it led to the low yields and the production, and that led to the demise or collapse of agricultural sector. So that conference aimed at emphasizing the third world countries to come up with agricultural reforms and the best methods on how they will conduct the agricultural activities and how they will increase the rate of production in agricultural products, and which will boost up the economy of those third world countries and will increase the presence of enough food for feeding the present population in the respective country, and the other production of raw materials like sisal, coffee, cotton, and other needed raw materials for the processing and the manufacturing of various goods which are going to be consumed by the population. And hence, that through the practicing the agricultural reforms will enable the boosting up the economic development of third world countries. So this was another influence of the conference toward the efforts to solve the problem of underdevelopment in the third world countries. But the first one, it reaffirmed the creation of a new international monetary system. It means that the conference was aimed at the creation of a new international monetary system, which will enhance those third world countries to have the body which will assist financially. By that time, in the third world countries, we are depending much on the international monetary funds like IMF and World Bank. So these were praising the harsh conditions and the conditionalities which gave them to pay high interest rates once they are loaned by those financial bodies. So the Havana non-allied movement or conference come up with the decision or the suggestion of creating the new international monetary system, which will assist the third world countries financially in order to solve different problems concerning in economic, political, and technological affairs. So that's why led to the formation of African Development Bank as to influence and assist the third world countries to countercheck their financial problems. Another, it called upon the non-aligned movement governments to have effective use of science and technology. It means that the Havana non-allied movement or conference discussed that the non-allied movement governments to use effective the science and technology in different production. For example, in agricultural production, they have to use effective methods concerning with science and technology. For example, the use of fertilizers, machines, and the other modern methods in production that will enhance the increase of economic growth in the third world countries. So this was another influence of that conference which held in Havana in Cuba. So those third world countries were supposed to use effectively science and technology. And as we know, in many third world countries, the technology which is used is poor compared to the developed countries. So you can see the development in various economic activities is just poor, and it's related to the negative impacts toward the production because the technology which is used it is not satisfied with the needs of the respective country or the economy. So this was another influence toward the influence of the conference toward the efforts to solve the problems of underdevelopment in third world countries. And the last one, it reaffirmed to extend aid to the fellow developing nations suffering from drought and other disasters. It means that the Havana Conference was discussed on how to extend the aids and other assistance toward the developing countries in order to escape from drought and other disasters like floods, earthquakes, and other disasters, so that they can avoid the economic crisis or economic slump in the third world countries. So the non-allied movements, governments or nations were supporting those nations which were hit by the drought and other disasters. For example, in Tanzania, in the last year, I think it was last year, we experienced it was in 2018 when Tanzania experienced the earthquake in Bukoba. So the government of Tanzania received many aids from different nations in order to support in overcoming the problems which have been caused by that disaster. So after that, this is the influence of the conference toward the efforts to solve the problem of underdevelopment in third world countries. So let me give you an exercise which you have to practice for making you to be the best. And the question, it is explain the outcomes of branded report. And the second one, it is justify the influence of Havana Conference towards the efforts of solving problem of underdevelopment in third world countries. It means the first question, explain the outcomes of branded report, and the second one, justify the influence of Havana Conference towards the efforts of solving problem of underdevelopment in third world countries. Until there, this is the end of our lesson. So thank you for listening me attentively. I welcome you to another session. Bye bye.
Purchase your tracks today.